You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Today is episode 283, Small Business Phoenix, a client case study with Vita Vygovska, Part 2 update. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve your time management, and elevate your productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to you meeting my client and friend, Vita Vygovska. Vita is the award-winning author, speaker, business coach, and window treatment specialist. Her company, Vitalia Inc. Windows Treatment, is a comprehensive fabrication, measurement, installation, and project management service that specializes in supporting interior designers and architects. We are the one-stop shop, expert go-to resource for design and architecture firms looking for support with window treatments, upholstery, and related products. In business since 2006, Vita and her team are proud to be the experts in their narrow field, providing their clients with superb quality product and excellent communication. Located in the greater Philadelphia area, Vitalia Inc. can handle projects anywhere nationwide and around the globe. And before we dive into today's episode, I do need to let you know that this is an update episode. So to ensure you do not miss all the details and the background, be sure you've already listened to last week's episode 282. That episode was recorded 3 years ago, but I did do the replay because I think it's relevant to have listened to that episode and then jump into this one. In that episode, we dive into Vita's entrepreneurial journey, her struggles with productivity, time management, building her team, and how she's improved in those areas, grew her company, and achieved success. It also gives you an in-depth look into our coaching relationship and how we partner together to help Vita reach her goals. You got to know that each and every one of my relationships with my clients is a bit different. And I highlight each of my clients in these entrepreneurial case studies so that you can recognize that perhaps there's pieces of it that you relate to and that hit home for you and you find are inspiring to your own entrepreneurial journey, but also so that you can see the different ways in which I work with my clients that is completely customizable based on where my clients are at, what their unique challenges are, and that really, really drives the direction in how we approach the solutions to each of their challenges and really how they're going to reach their goals. That episode that I am referring to is a replay, but it is packed with so much insight, value, and really a lot of inspiration. So that's why I wanted to reshare it. Now, if you've already listened to that episode, you already know where we left off, and I hope you're still with me. And if you are in for an amazing update episode. Man, Vita was completely transparent, vulnerable, honest, and I've got to tell you, she shared with us some tragic details of some things that she's been going through in her business, how she navigated that, how she navigated it with her team, how she navigated it with her husband and her family, what that impact was on her personal life. She shares how she managed expectations through a tragedy with her team. And she really let us know what is next for her and her team, and that it does get better on the other side. So no matter where you find yourself in your business, what challenge you're finding yourself in, there is a way through it. There is a way to get to the other side of it. And you're in for a treat as we talk about this with Vita today. After you have listened to today's episode and you feel like you can relate to Vita's story, I would love to chat with you if you think private coaching could be a fit for you, that I could partner with you and help you reach your goals and work through your challenges that you're having in your business. If that interests you, I encourage you to go schedule a discovery call by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/call. Schedule a discovery call. We're going to, chat about where you're at in your business. What are your current challenges? Where do you want to be? And we're going to see if we're a great fit to work together. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome back to Productivity Straight Talk. Vita, how are you today?
I'm great, Amber. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a real honor to be here with you after all these years that we've known each other and since the last interview. I can't believe it's been, what did we just figure it was?
3 years. Yes.
Yeah, it's time flies and it's a privilege to be a guest on your show, Amber. Thank you.
Absolutely. We both couldn't believe it. We literally did a date check right before hitting record to make sure it really was 3 years, because it does. I guess in one sense for you, it could probably feel like a decade for what we're going to cover today of what you've been through in the last 3 years. And another, it's like a blink of an eye. You and I have kept in contact. While we don't currently work together, we have kept in great contact and friendship over the years. And so I really thought it is such a great inspirational story. Like, I have goosebumps right now, even saying that, of what you've been through. And I wanted to highlight your story because I think that it's going to be so impactful for a lot of business owners that are, dealing with some real challenges. And honestly, I'm going to call yours a tragedy, and you came out on the other side. And so I really want to share some of the insights of what was that like? I'm trying not to
give it all away.
Give it all away right now. But where I would love to go is what are some insights? What were those challenges? And what do you contribute to getting to the other side of what we're going to talk about today?
Oof, that's a loaded question.
Right?
Okay. Should I just tell the story of what happened so your listeners know, what's this big elephant they're talking about?
Well, let's keep them on the hook for a minute longer. So I want you to share, what does the business look like today in the sense of your team? Because we shared a lot about that in the other episode. So let's just forward. There's a couple things I want to put into context. So what is your current revenue? Because we talked about you were on your way to $1 million in gross revenue. We also talked a lot about your team and decisions you had to make, although challenging, turned out to be some great decisions. So let's start there, and then we'll talk about the elephant in the room.
All right. So in the last 3 years, when we interviewed back then in 2020, we were on our way, and we superseded, is that the word?
Surpassed.
Surpassed. Okay. 700,000. And the following year in 2021, so after sort of the pandemic hit, we were actually almost doubled our business. So we were at over 1.3 million. So my sort of dream and goal, the intention, the plan of making $1 million, I just sort of blew right by
Yes,
right
you
to
did.
1.3. So, which, also has its challenges and rewards and all sorts of things that are attached to that. So, pandemic was very challenging for everyone, a lot of industries, with the interior design industry and the window treatment being kind of the subset of that. We sort of got the longer end of that stick. Everybody, probably knows at this point that construction, and then as a result real estate as a result interior design, as a result in window treatments, our industries flourished with people working from home and wanting to beautify their homes, or people wanting to buy second properties, extra properties. It was the pandemic was good to us in terms of the overall demand. Now, with that, there were a lot of podcasts and talk and a lot of grumbling and all sorts of groups and mastermind meetings as to what's better, to not have enough demand or have too much demand. And I can tell you that the overall consensus was it is a lot more stressful to have too much demand and not being able to keep up with it. And also, of course, the pandemic brought up a lot of the supply chain issues too. So on one hand, we had our entire industry was blessed with the increased demand from our customers for our services. And then on the other hand, not only could we were really challenged fulfilling that demand because of just the sheer volume of it, but we were challenged because we couldn't get a blind, we couldn't get a certain part, we couldn't get a certain fabric. Designers couldn't get a sofa in the regular, say, 6 to 8 weeks, and they had to wait maybe 16 weeks or 26 weeks, whatever it may be. So it was sort of like a double whammy there for this whole industry. And even through that, to be able to double our sales in 2 consecutive years after 2020, that is a real achievement for me. I feel very proud of that. And having said that, the bigger achievement is, and that is the second part of your question, is my team. So I just recently did this whole presentation, and I started the presentation with a single picture of me sitting in what back 18 years ago was a home and garden booth. Back then I put together this little 9x9 booth. It was painted in gold colors and adorned with burgundy drapes. And anybody in the industry knows that's like totally what we did in the 90s and early 2000s. So that was me back then, and that's how I started. I was a solopreneur for 12 years. I was just like this little girl. I think I started my business, I was under 30. And I was so unsure of myself, and I didn't know exactly where this was going to take me. And I know I just had this big dream. And so fast forward almost 20 years later, and this young, meek solopreneur has grown her team to, we are a team of 8 now, including myself. We have in-house window treatment specialist. We have an in-house general manager. We have an in-house installer, which is a really pretty big deal to have like an in-house person who installs for you versus a subcontractor. We have 2 fabricators. We have an amazing marketing coordinator and a financial person, bookkeeper. So yeah, a team of 8, which is quite something. And so looking back, and we'll talk about the tragic things that happened in the last 3 years. And I can laugh about it now because I'm totally on the other side, but they were quite challenging. And the one thing that I'm most proud of, Amber, it's not the revenue, it's not even the overcoming some of these challenges, but it is the team that I was able to put together.
Yes.
And how we work together, how we solve issues and challenges, and how we get along and how we support it. It's just, that gives me goosebumps, actually.
I love that. And this is the other side, because in our previous episode, we really shared some of that journey. It wasn't just like, oh, I decided to be a solopreneur and then a large team. It really came with its own trials. And I have to ask, at some point, did you ask yourself, is it worth it? And was it worth it now that you're on the other side of building this dream team?
That is such a good question. It is something that I think probably a lot of entrepreneurs who are on the journey or who already have the team, I don't know if they ever asked that. I'm not sure if I've even ever asked that of myself. It's like you're sort of, once you make the decision and you put yourself on the rails, you just go down the rails a cell speed.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? It is 100% worth it. Now that I am on the other side of this, it is 100% worth it. Have there been many instances where I questioned myself and wondered, why do I need to be managing people? Why do I need to be creating processes? why do I have to repeat something for the fifth time when the first time should have been sufficient? And I think my directions were pretty clear, and there's still mistakes or misunderstandings. And so I would be completely untruthful of me if I said that those moments did not come up once or twice or maybe 25 times or no more throughout this whole journey. What I have learned is that hiring is a huge journey. It's a huge event that you need to be prepared for, not just up until when the person is hired, but also afterwards when that person is trained. And as a CEO of my company, it is one of my top 2 or 3 priorities to make sure that I hire properly, that I hire well, that I make the right decisions to bring the right person into the fold. And then afterwards, to make sure that I ensure the success of that person. And that, of course, comes with through a lot of training and also with a lot of patience too, Amber. I still Google how to be patient almost on a daily basis.
I hope Google's got your back, giving you some tips.
I should probably ask ChatGPT, forget Google at this point.
Right. The next call your friend kind of thing.
What's my
So,
lifeline?
Vita, when you ask that question, like, why am I doing SOPs? Why am I repeating myself? I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and that the why was something way bigger than in that moment. You had a bigger vision for yourself and your business, and that why is what pulled you through all of those moments that we're talking about right now. Is that right?
My biggest why was that I wanted to create a business that was not dependent on me, that I wanted to make myself expendable. I wanted to create an entity that essentially had a life of its own without me having to constantly prop it up and without me having to retain all the information or know the information in my head.
Right.
I wanted to create a business. And, when I say I wanted is like, again, it wasn't like an overnight that I made that decision. It was a long journey to make that decision. And so once I realized that, once I became came to that point of clarity that that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be beyond me. I wanted to build a legacy beyond me. When those tough moments come up and I have to create yet another process for something that I thought was so clear and so common sense. And then, you sit back and you say, well, it's common sense to you and it's common sense in your own head, but perhaps there's a different version of that common sense in somebody else's head. So if I wanted the Vitalia ink to be a certain way, that I needed to document it and then train someone to perform it that way and then course correct when they didn't.
Yes. So I think this is a great transition into, so you had this vision of building the team so that it wasn't just you and only on your shoulders, so that you could be the CEO and that your team could help you handle challenges. That's some of the things you just said, whether you know it or not. So what's the elephant in the room? So Vita, you surpassed your $1 million goal. Your industry was, blessed or cursed, either way you say it,
Both.
with so much business. And in the mix of that, what happened in your business?
So I remember it very clearly. It was on Friday, March 5th of 2021. I was driving into work early in the morning, and it was one of those cold, crisp, and beautiful March mornings where there was not a single cloud in the sky. It was beautiful blue color and the sun was shining, and my commute was all of but 5 minutes. And I remember driving and thinking, wow, life is good. Life is so great. I have everything that I want. I have a great team. At that point, we had how many people? Maybe 5 people, I think. But I had my key roles filled after a very tumultuous journey of trying to fill some of those roles. And family was great, health was great, business was great. It was beginning of 2021, and the first couple of months were amazing. We were on our way. Then I didn't know it quite then yet in March, but we were on the way to almost double our business. And so remember driving into work and thinking, oh my God, life is so good. Like it's Friday morning, it's beautiful, everything's great. How can anything possibly ever go wrong? 5 hours later, our building that we then rented on fire. It was an electrical fire in the basement, right underneath our unit. We were all there. We were able to escape, I guess, because it started in the basement. It hasn't traveled up to the first floor where the rest of us were. So all of my whole team, we stood there in that crisp Friday afternoon at that point, barely with our coats on because we were just trying to get out of the building as fast as possible. And we watched the entire building go up in smoke. The firefighters, bless their hearts, doing their thing, and also doing it just so unapologetically and, breaking and tearing everything in their path as they should. And 3-4 hours later, after the whole thing started, we were let back in just to find out that everything that we either owned or stored was destroyed. Like I said before, we had the great January and February, which means a lot of fabric inventory that was waiting to be fabricated from some really high-end vendors. They were destroyed. The drapery panels, the Roman shades, the blinds that were stored on shelves, the complete ones waiting to be installed, they were destroyed. All of our samples, product samples, fabric samples, they all melted or were completely charred. The ceiling, the walls, the damage that is done when the firefighters when they rush into the building and they have to create the environment or make sure that there were no smoke or fire trapped anywhere in the building. And it was just all completely broken down, destroyed, wet from the water. Everything was black and gray and charred. The worst of it, though, was the smell. The smell of an electrical fire is nothing like you have ever experienced before. I certainly never did. Hope that I never do. The smell haunted me for a very long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everything we had, a lot of our machinery, equipment, a lot of it was completely gone, and the building was deemed uninhabitable.
So you did a really good job painting a picture, but I will ask if you could share a picture with me and we'll put it on some social media and under the podcast episode on our website, because, like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I remember you sending me the pictures. I can't even talk about it now without crying. I remember just literally tears of how absolutely devastating. Yeah. You always think it's not going to happen to you. Yeah. And so you find yourself in just a split moment. You have no work. You have to redo work. You have no place to work. This is a traumatic event of how do you even get started? So, I mean, where do you go from there? So talk to me about what did that weekend look like? Or did you just kind of step away and decompress? Did you start again on Monday? What was the next steps after you realized you had nothing in your business?
We had nothing. Yep. So after we realized and saw for ourselves how bad the damage was, I think my entire team and my husband was there too. We were all kind of speechless and shocked there for a while and sort of like dumbfounded. We like didn't know exactly like where to go and what to do and what the next step should be. So when in doubt, you go and eat. So we walked over to a local restaurant.
No, I did not know this answer. Okay. Yes. When in doubt,
Oh yeah,
eat.
you put food in the belly, so that's number one. And I think it was like around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and so the dinner crowd hasn't started to come in yet. The waitress, when she saw our faces, she kept saying like, "Is everything okay? What's wrong? Is everything okay?" So one of us must have told her. And lo and behold, so this was a BYOB restaurant, and somewhere from the depths of some sort of counters, there comes out a bottle of wine. Compliments of the restaurant, and she's like, "You need it more than any of us do."
That is awesome.
Yeah, so you eat first, and you have a little bit of wine second. Most importantly, of course, I'm being all tongue in cheek about it, but you sit around and you look at your team and they look at you. For some realize what happened, some didn't quite process what happened. In some of them, I saw fear. In some of them, I saw kind of a loss in their eyes. And in a split second, you realize that like you're the leader of these people. You have to decide what to do next.
You're their livelihood.
And I'm their livelihood too, right? I mean, there were families to support, mortgages to pay, bills to pay, food to put on the table. So I look at my husband and I think I whispered to him, I said, we have to move back into the house. And when I say back, I mean, when I was a solopreneur, I started in my home. I was a home-based solopreneur, as a lot of window treatment specialists are, and even a lot of interior designers are as well. I didn't move out and rent this little space for 12, 13 years or so. And so at that point, I was maybe 2 years or so out of the house. And so I turned to my husband and whisper, I think I have to move it back. I think I have to move everything back. And thank God, Amber, Vitalia, I have the best husband in the world who is so supportive and so easygoing too. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Of course. No questions asked. And so we turned to the girls, my team, and we were making a toast saying, this is the beginning of something that looks tragic right now, and it is only the beginning of something that is going to be amazing down the road. We don't know exactly yet how it's going to look like at the end of that road. And we do know that what we can control right now is that we can still be together, we can still work together, and we can still do the beautiful work that we have been doing in the old place. Because whether we're in the office or in my house or anywhere else, it's just silly geography. What matters is that we are capable, that we are resilient, and we are going to support each other. So I told them that come Monday, we're moving into my house. So instead of driving over to this address, make a slight little turn and come to my personal address. So
and now let's paint that picture, because I've also seen pictures and you and I had chatted via video. So we're not talking like, oh yeah, everyone just went into an office in a room in your house. Your whole house was taken over, really, right? Like in the dining room, and things had to be stored, and places had to be where you had your team sewing and creating the window treatments. You had your admin staff, you had your own office. Not to mention your family's living in this house. So like paint that picture. I did a little bit, but really this was like all like
this
consuming.
Was all in. It was all in, all consuming. And I don't live in a mansion. I don't live in one of those amazing houses that we as window treatment professionals often decorate or our designers often design. Nope, mine is a standard Bucks County center colonial. You walk in, the front door is center of the building, and to the left is the dining room, to the right is the living room. You walk forward, there's a family room and a kitchen. So it's a very, it's I don't want to say, is it modest? It's just, it's a very kind of standard home around here. It's not small, it's not huge. It's just one, it's good enough for a family of four. That's what we
Yeah.
are. So
Yes.
overnight, it became a home for a family of
Ni-
almost 10.
yes.
Yeah, 9, yeah. So, so hey, listen, nobody uses the dining room anyway. I mean,
Right.
who
Right.
needs a pretty but empty dining room? So you might as well make use of it. And the living room, we kind of redid. We've always used it as an office, my husband and I. My poor husband, again, bless his heart, and thank God he is so easygoing and chill. He got relegated to an upstairs spare bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, up there he went, and my window treatment specialist and I, we sat in this living room slash office, and then slowly but surely it got filled up with samples and fabrics and shelvings and trims and other things that come in. Um, and then the center foyer, again, the foyer sounds very fancy. It really isn't. It's like a teeny tiny little corridor thing. That was our shipping and receiving area. So any window treatment specialist knows you get lots of boxes, long boxes, big boxes, short boxes, heavy boxes, all
Yeah.
your blinds, all your shades, all your fabrics, bolts of fabrics. So then the dining room slowly got filled up as we were reordering all of the fabrics that got ruined and were lost. We would put them in that dining room. That's where my general manager sat. And first it was one little corner, and then it was a little corner and a wall. Then it was two walls, and then at some point it was all the corners, all the walls, all the
Yes.
boxes. Poor Lisa had to step over everything that was all over the place. At one point, we have a picture. I'll try to find that one for you, where that Where's Waldo
Mm.
game that we play, Where's Lisa,
Yes.
because she was buried with all the just stuff
Yeah.
that comes into the business that receives a lot of packages and boxes and things every single day. And then our receipts got spilled over into the family room, and our conference room was my kitchen table. So my fabricator Boris, he worked. We have a two-car garage that's another thing, Amber. See, this is all about silver linings. The garage gets filled with stuff that you don't need. The stuff goes there to die. It just like, put it in the garage, put it in the garage. We'll deal with it later. Well, so you asked me a little earlier, how did my weekend look? The weekend looked like Vita and Vitalia and the kids were cleaning out the garage.
Waiting to welcome your team.
That's right. That's right. So
So
over the weekend we set up all the desks, all the computers, all the samples. Most importantly, we set up our workroom in that
yeah.
two-car garage. So come Monday, we were pretty fully operational.
Wow, you move fast. Okay, there's a couple things I want to hit pause on this story with before we continue, because I have some points or questions. So one, because I've grown to know you quite well over the years, you like structure, predictability. You love organization, and I do too, right? Like we all have ways in which we're navigating the world that we feel secure and we feel like we show up our best.
Yeah.
So I could imagine that in itself was a challenge, to look around your home, your personal space. Everything is an unknown. When you're describing things everywhere, that in itself can create some anxiety for people like you and I.
Yeah.
Was that there, or was it like, wow, that didn't matter in the moment because of all this other stuff? Like, I'm just curious, how did you navigate all the unknowns and all the, disorganization until it was organized?
I honestly, were there days when I wanted to just curl up and cry, and did, in my bed or couch or wherever? Absolutely, there were. It wouldn't be truthful of me to say that there weren't. And in addition to, Amber, both you and I liking our organization and predictability and the planning and all that, we are also we get stuff done. We like moving forward. We like producing value. And so, yeah, I curled up and cried a couple of times. And then eventually the tears dry up and you're like, all right, well, that's that. Okay, so that's done. Cross that off my list. Now what? Like, what's next? Like, well, that was kind of boring. Can't do that every day. Like, what's next? Let's get this thing done. Like, what's the next thing that needs to get done? Let me go do
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
so, we are all complex individuals. Yes, I love the structure. Yes, I love the organization. I also love being productive. I
Mhm.
also love creating value. And so, in situations like these, I think there's a certain side of the personality then that overtakes some others. And
Yeah.
so that organized and everything needs to be ever so nice and neat and perfect had to retreat. It didn't have a choice, really. It had to come sort of go back in like the tertiary level, like I'll see you later kind of thing, because there's stuff that needs to get done and
Yeah.
we need to move into action mode. And we need to move forward and we need to plan. Speaking of planning, that planning side wasn't about making the environment look perfect. It was about, we just lost over 100 bolts of fabric. The loss was in over 100-figure loss that PS did not get covered by insurance.
That was
And
my second question. So we'll put
uh-huh.
a pin in that. I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So like we have clients, we have designers, and they need to know about what happened. And once they know about what happened, then they need to feel assured that whatever fabric they sent our way is going to get replaced. And then they need to be assured that even though we may not be able to install their project on, let's say, March 7th of that week, but we will remake it and we will install it as soon as possible and we will keep them in the loop. And our plan of action is X, Y, and Z. So that organized and planning side of my personality got really sort of overtaken by the actionable, move it forward, get it done. No looking back, no throwing pity party for myself.
Yeah.
Just get it, well, at least not for a long time. um, just get it done. And that's we all moved into an action mode.
Yeah, I am so happy to hear that. And I kind of knew that because of where we're at. We'll finish the story of where you're at now. Obviously, you focused on action. I know that communicating was incredibly important, and that's important to not just communicating. You alluded to it with your team, like communicating with them. They need to know that you had a plan and feel confidence in that, but so did your clients, because that could have really harmed some relationships, even though they're like, oh, that's really sad for you. We all know
Right.
it's like, yeah, that's sad for you, but like, I need this install, I need this
Right.
treatment. And in all the best ways, because now they're accountable to their clients that are asking, and it's this trickling effect.
Sure.
So yes, the communication with a solid plan is absolutely essential. So you did say it. That was going to be my second question, because I want every business owner here to hear this.
Yeah.
Insurance didn't cover it. So that was probably the second time you made me cry, was getting that boxer. So,
Well, that was personal stupidity. So I have nobody else to blame
Like,
by
I'm
myself.
gonna.
No, it's fine. It's all right. It is what it is. It is just that
You didn't
I
know what you don't know, and you're helping people learn right now. That's what I want to say. Like, I hear you, but I'm not going to let you sit on that, because I truly believe that it's one of those things that you don't know until you know sometimes. So, what do we know now?
Yeah. So what we know now is that when you move out of your house where your business and personal contents are covered by your personal property insurance, when you rent a space, there is a whole other level of insurance that you need to look into and make sure that you're covered. And it probably doesn't sound like any kind of like this grandiose news to anyone. And it didn't sound like that to me either. And I did have it on my list to look into insurance and to make sure that I was covered on all fronts. When you move into a new place, however, and when you go through great growth and when you go through scaling in terms of your team and people, there are so many things to do. And your to-do list just keeps on growing every single day, and you don't cross those to-do points fast enough. What happened is that tiny little bullet point of getting the proper level of insurance kept getting pushed down and down and further down and further down. And there was also a part of me that was like, it'll be fine. Oh, it'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine. Like it'll be fine. Like what kind, it's a great building, it's a great area, it's a great place. Like nothing will happen. It can't happen to me. You see it on the news. You hear all sorts of things on the news, but it won't happen to me until it does and until it did. And so the biggest lesson here is protect yourself for the awful and unexpected and obviously unwanted, because of that 0.001% chance that it may actually happen to you. You want to be covered, you want to be protected, you just don't want to be caught off guard like that, and make it a priority.
Yeah. So don't walk, run, and make sure that you have insurance. And also, we all get the insurance. They send you that 20-page thing. Here's what's covered, here's what's not. And you're like, surely they got me covered. Like, surely. Yeah. I think it's worth really looking at it and saying, okay, like if there was a fire, if there was a flood, if there's theft, like really understanding it. And if you don't ask for help, ask your insurance agent or someone to explain what's covered, what's not covered, what are my options for coverage. It's not fun. And it is one of those administrative things. And it is one of those things we can naturally say, like, tomorrow, next week, next month, it's not going to happen. But that's what I really wanted our listeners to hear, is that it can happen to anybody, and it's always the unexpected, and it's a tragedy, right? Like we don't expect those things, and they're not planned. And, the little thing that's just one little bullet point could be the thing that changes a lot for you. So
yeah.
Glad we talked about that. So everyone's going to go run, not walk, and make sure not only do they have insurance, but the right insurance for coverage. So that was a hurdle. That was probably a curl up moment if I had to guess myself, like, oh my gosh, what's next? So now you get this news, and you obviously now are making a plan for how are 100 bolts of fabric getting replaced? How is all the things that were already made? And so you just moved from one to the next to the next, right?
So I have to say that there were this whole insurance thing. Yes, that was a huge mistake and a huge lesson on my part. And the thing is, it's like, none of us are, I don't know, we're all educated. We're all smart, bright, business owners. That's who listens to your podcast, Amber. That's who coaches with you. It's just sometimes we make those decisions that are not beneficial to your future. Well, the one decision that I made that was extremely beneficial to my future without even realizing all the repercussions, and that is to computerize all of our records and automate a lot of our record keeping, and create a project management system where we tracked all the thousands and millions of details that go into a window treatment project. And so that's actually part of the reason why you and I started working together. Ultimately, we netted out on this software called Airtable that I, through many years, customized to a window treatment business, and now actually teach other window treatment professionals how to set up theirs, or even hand it over, give it to them if they're part of a certain group. So having that project management system is what enabled me to hit the ground running come not even Monday, come Saturday, Amber, because Saturday morning I woke up and I'm like, okay, what is my highest good? What is the one next thing that I could be doing without having a grand plan, without having the list of 50 things that I need to get done today? If I were just to just think of one bullet point, and that is the next thing that I do. And that was, I needed to personally call all of our active designers. Now, we work with altogether, I think our database is probably close to 150 designers. designers. Not all of them are active at a certain point in time. And
Mm-hmm.
so at that point on March 5th, I don't remember exactly, but let's call it 20 designers. And so my highest good on the Saturday morning was to call them, email, text them, and let them know about what happened. And not just that, to your earlier point, because for a second, everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then the next immediate thing is like, I understand, but what does that mean to me? And that's okay. That's just,
Yeah.
how we all operate. So I said, we had this thing happen. It was awful. And we have everything computerized. Everything is on the cloud. I can access everything very easily. And that's how I was able to run the report of all the active designers at the moment, call them, email, contact them, and let them know about what happened. And most importantly, how we are going to replace what we lost. Now, how did we know what we lost? Again, it's because in that project management system, we have tracked and notated all the things that we've received, all the things that we were about to receive, all the things that were still outstanding, all the things that we have done or we're going to do or haven't done yet. And all of our estimates, all of our invoices, all of that is all digital, so that even though any kind of files and any kind of physical possessions were destroyed in that fire, because everything it was and is still cloud-based, I was able to access it, and anyone on my team can do it at any time from any place.
Yes, that's great. I'm so glad you shared that. And that's the same thing. That could have fallen under for many business owners of someday maybe, right? I get on the cloud. And for many, that someday maybe came when the pandemic happened and everyone was working remotely when they were working in person. And then it was immediately people had to figure out how to make sure everything was digital. Their whole team could reach it from anywhere. So if that wasn't you at that time, this is another reason why, getting those systems and processes in order so that you can be up and going right away. It also reminded me, I've had, computer failure, right? I mean, we all have it. I've had computer failure. Go get a computer in the morning and be completely up and running without missing a beat by the afternoon, because it's a matter of just logging into everything's cloud-based. So there's lots of reasons why that's a good lesson. And I'm so glad that served you well. So let's fast forward to where are you at now? So that was March of 2021. So all of 2021, you're working from home, you're building your team, you're doubling your business. I mean, you also did more than double your business in work because you had to redo a lot of the work that was already done,
That
right?
That is true.
So, I mean, just like in an instant. And, for efficiency, you guys did with what you had, but it wasn't like you had your workroom running like a well-oiled machine going from dining room to formal living room to kitchen table, but you did it, right?
Yep.
In the midst of that, as the CEO, after you've gotten, day-to-day business back on track, what was your focus and what were you working on?
My major focus was to find us a new home, because of course I realized that working out of my house was not a permanent solution. I also did have enough foresight somewhere in me to tell my team that we are here for a long haul. It is not something that we're going to get out of after a month or 2 months, even after half a year. I told them we're here for at least a year. So having set that expectation with them very, very early on in this process was at first shocking to them. And ultimately, I think very, very helpful. I think it would have been much more detrimental if I said, oh, we'll be out of here in 3 months, don't worry. And then after 3 months, be like, oh, don't worry, it's going to take another 3 months. And then just having to come back and kind of go back on my word. I think that would have been bad for me personally and not good for the team. So I definitely gave them an expectation of it being a long process. So my number one job was to find us a new home. So I looked and researched and left no stone unturned. I looked at a million buildings and a million offices and talked to a million people all to eventually, Amber, actually, my journey brought me back to where it all started. The building that we then rented, and it was even half of that building that we then rented, I and my husband were able to purchase from our landlord. And so a year later after the fire, we became the owners of this then dilapidated building that we then subsequently spent a half a year or so rebuilding completely from scratch.
What a full circle moment. And I remember us chatting. I mean, you were in negotiations, you were talking to attorneys, you were visiting different options, all in the end to circle back, and the property you were in, the owner was willing to sell it to you. And not sell it to you fixed up. Like, he didn't do anything to it yet, right?
He did nothing. He
Yeah.
did nothing. Yeah, it was completely still in the same uninhabitable state that we left it back on March 5th of 2021. And then in April of 2022, we purchased it and started the demolition and reconstruction. And we were able to build it into this beautiful little building. It's about 2,500 square feet. We lifted up ceilings. We dropped floors to create more height. We opened up the walls, knocked down unnecessary walls, just reconfigured it to the way that we wanted it to be. And now it is this beautiful, new, bright, really pretty, and very workable, I guess, building where we have our workroom, where we have a huge shipping and receiving room now, my favorite room in the whole building. So it's no longer my tiny little foyer in the house. It is this really nice and spacious room where we keep all the fabrics and all the product that comes in, and a great workroom with a hoist. My workroom people, listeners would appreciate this. A hoist lifts up to 164 inches, and we have beautiful offices and a fabric sample library, a great conference room where we see clients. So it's amazing to have come full circle like that, and ultimately build something for yourself that you never even thought was in your dreams. Like, it's not like I ever dreamt about owning this building or owning any building for my business. I did know, however, going back, Amber, back on that beautiful Friday morning where life was great and everything was terrific, somewhere way, way, way in the back of my mind, I knew that the space was getting a little too small. We did start to kind of bust out of it. And had it not been for this catalyst of the fire, who knows when I would have ever made it a priority to look for a new space for us. And even if I did, had I been as resilient and persistent in looking for a space, who knows if I would have even found anything. So like all these things, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And it is sometimes this tragic event that needs to give you a kick in the pants in more ways than one, to ultimately have the most beautiful result possible, where, I can drive into work and no, I do not think anymore how beautiful life is and everything's terrific, but I do think every day how thankful and grateful I am. So I'm trying to switch the dialogue or the monologue inside my head a little bit. Just now, I just say how grateful I am for what I have.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to know. So we came full circle. So you surpassed your goal of 1 million. You reached, and maybe even could say surpassed your goal of your team. Your team's larger than ever. Yeah. You bought a property, remodeled it, moved in. You just had your grand opening last month, right? Mm-hmm. What's next? So you've got this, you've risen from the fire, you've gone through all of these things, and not just got back on track, but, surpassed it. What is Vita focusing on now for the next chapter of her business?
I am pouring into my team right now, Amber. I am really making sure, and I tell them this every day. I say to them, I want Vitalia Inc. to be so good to you and for you to feel so happy that you never want to leave, you never want to ever even think about another job. I want this to be your forever job because you're so stinking happy here. So I try to pour into them in tangible ways and intangible ways, also pouring into the team structure and team systems and processes and a lot of job descriptions and we do it this way and how do we do this and the other thing as it comes to the team. So a lot of it has to do with investing time and energy into my team. And then secondarily, now that we have this beautiful space and having gone through this 2-year life-changing journey, those window treatment specialists who have heard of it through various ways, I have a lot of them reach out to me and say, I want to have the business that you have. How do I build the business that you have built? But how do I do it faster? How do I not go through all the trials and all the tribulations and all the ifs and buts and whatevers? So that's what I give to them now. I have this thing that I call VIP experience where I host window treatment specialists for a 2-day private in-person intensive where I essentially hand over all of my systems to them so that they can skip the whole stage of figuring it out on their own and wondering if they're doing the right thing and wondering if they're making a mistake. They can just follow the blueprint of a successful and profitable and scalable window treatment business who has been where they are wanting to be.
Oh, that's excellent. Yes, you shared with me that offering and went into some of the details. I think it's so valuable. I can tell that that's going to be so beneficial to so many other business owners that are, on this journey and really want that shortcutted for themselves.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, Vita, I'd love for you just to share how people can reach out to you if they want to connect with you after today's conversation.
Oh, yes, of course. The best way to do it is to go on our website, which is vitaliainc.com. It is a very content-rich site. There are lots of really informative free articles that you can read, videos that you can watch, a podcast that you can listen, whether you are trying to be a better window treatment specialist and elevate your window treatment game, or you're trying to elevate your business game. I have resources and tools for you to do all of that. And of course, there's lots of pictures of our projects because everything that I teach is from the standpoint of boots on the ground kind of approach. So lots of projects installing every day, amazing people working for me. So lots of eye candy there if you wanted to see some of our installations. And all of my contact information is there. And I would love to connect with people. I love when I get emails saying, "Oh, I heard you on the podcast and I listened to this story and I heard that story and how'd you do this and the other thing." I love getting emails like that. So I would love to hear from your listeners, Amber.
Absolutely. Well, we'll share that link in the show notes as well as a few pictures that can go along with your experience. I hate to even say story, but like you really shared the details of this experience. And I'm always a curious person. So I will definitely share those pictures with those that would like to check that out. Vita, thank you so much for being here and having this open, vulnerable, honest conversation that I think serves business owners, no matter what industry they're in or find themselves in. And all jokes aside, when Vita and I, right before we hit record, I was telling her, like, every day business owners are challenged. And oftentimes we feel as though that challenge is just so big and how are we going to move through it? And how are we going to get on the other side? And, short of your whole business burning down, this should be inspirational that you can get to the other side. Because I really can't think of many more things that are that, business altering and challenging on all levels. And I really wanted you to share that story and experience. So thank you, Vita. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Amber. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I really hope it was helpful.
Wow, right? Like, can we even wrap our minds around if something like that happened in our business? I am so incredibly proud of Vita. I am inspired. I am really awestruck. And while I was not coaching her through this specific experience or time in her business, I did get to see this through the lens of obviously her coach, but also a friend. And I can't tell you enough, like, in those moments, just like you may find yourself in now in your business, I'm certain Vita didn't quite know if she was going to get to the other side, what her business would or could look like. And as you heard, her business is thriving right now. What I would love for you to take away from today's conversation with Vita is that there's always a way through. Thank you so much, Vita, for sharing your experience and your story with us. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found today's interview and conversation with Vita to be just as inspiring and valuable as I did. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So where are you at in your business? Do you feel like the challenges seem too much to take on yourself? Do you feel like you're not sure if you can see the other side or the way through? If that is true for you, I would love to get the opportunity to work with you. The action that I think would be best is for you to schedule a discovery call. If you would like support and coaching and training and accountability around improving your productivity, time management, business systems, team building, strategic decision making, or mindset, then the one small action you can take in the right direction is do what Vita did and schedule a discovery call. And the best way to do that is by scheduling your discovery call over at amberdelagarza.com/call. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/call. And I invite you to schedule that today. If you are new here, welcome, and please make sure you subscribe so you do not miss another episode of Productivity Straight Talk. And if you have found today's episode to be valuable and insightful, don't keep it a secret. Share it with another business owner who you think needs to hear the message Vita shared with us today. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.